And welcome into Commanders Training Camp 2022. Check out these live pictures we have for you. We have you covered every day of camp from the team's facility in Ashburn, bringing you this exclusive coverage of practice, interviews with your favorite players, and access like you will not find anywhere else. Coming up on today's show, it has been a heck of a training camp so far for defensive coordinator Jack Del Rio. The defense is making some big plays and getting some love from fans out here in Ashburn. Find out if our guys see the Commanders' defense having a return to the 2020 form after an admittedly disappointing 2021 season. Over on the offensive side of the ball, tackle Sam Cosmi is entering his second season in the league and is becoming a staple for the Commanders up front. What can we expect from the big boys up front with Cosmi, new guard Andrew Norwell, and a healthy Chase Roulier? Head coach Ron Rivera is entering his third season here in Washington. He is looking to get the Commanders to the postseason for the second time in 3 years. The head coach stopped by our set to talk about how camp is going and what he will be looking for in the preseason opener on Saturday. And our guys, Logan Paulson and Santana Moss, will take you to the practice field to watch what is going on and tell you firsthand why it is important and what they remember from their days at camp. It is the closest you can get to camp without actually being here. And we are bringing it all to you right now on Command Center Camp Coverage Live, presented by the inaugural Commanders Fan Cruise, setting sail March 26, 2023. Reserve your spot at www.commandersfancruise.com. This is exclusive access to Washington Commanders training camp at the park here in Ashburn, Virginia, and we are giving you daily updates on what is happening out on the practice field. We will be showing you live look-ins at what is happening throughout our show, so we are glad that you could join us. Julie Donaldson here with you, along with Logan Paulson and Santana Moss. Gentlemen, this is the only day the team will be in pads ahead of their very first preseason game, this Saturday against Carolina. Many would question why one day in pads, and what are you hoping to get from this, Logan?
I think this is just like a good day to kind of just make sure everyone's nice and sharp. Got a day in shells yesterday, and then I think you're kind of building towards the preseason game, right? Yeah. You want to get these guys feeling a little bit fresher. They're a little bit banged up. 6 days in a row, we were talking yesterday about how they have really heavy legs, kind of freshen everybody up while still making sure we can get some stuff done.
Yeah, I mean, he hit it on the head. I think one of the things that's important to understand is that, one, we in camp. 2, we have a game to prepare for. So, yes, we do need to get the feel of these pads. But 3, we also want to keep you guys as fresh as possible. And, we saw the heavy legs from the receivers. Yeah. I'm pretty sure across the board, everyone has these, these heavy legs. But the coaches want to make sure that they emphasize that it's going to be like this in camp. You're going to have these dog days. You have to have these legs. You have to have, feel like you're feeling. But we still have to go out there and get the job done come Saturday.
We've heard Coach a lot of times talking about the grind and kind of beefing up for the season and what it takes to actually do football. And remember, we are still coming fresh off the off season. So we're still just getting going here. Let's talk now about some of the storylines presented by Bank America, the official bank of the Washington Commanders that we are keeping an eye on for you. And we're going to start with the big boys up front, the offensive line. Sam Cosmi, he's entering his second year with Washington, and he's going to be one of the guys that needs to anchor the O-line, especially with the departure of Pro Bowler Brandon Sheriff. Now, the group's been getting reps against one of the best defensive lines in the league, so we're hoping that that's going to get them in sync and ready to go by week 1. And, well, since we're speaking of the defense, one of the bright spots for camp so far has been the defensive backfield. Kendall Fuller, William Jackson III, Cam Curl, Benjamin St. Juste, Jeremy Reeves, all of them have been making plays out here, as has rookie Percy Butler. Later in the show, we're going to talk with head coach Ron Rivera about why this could be the group to watch on Saturday. Now, the defense as a whole has been generating a lot of excitement among both the fans and local media here at camp. We've seen some big steps, interceptions, deflections, so it looks like a very motivated group for sure. This is a group who admits last year was quite humbling. That is something Coach Rivera addressed in his post-practice press conference.
Well, the biggest thing is not just about, it's just not about, obviously your personality being humbled or anything like that, but it's more about learning and understanding how to. Understanding it's not all about you, it's about us, and I think that's a big part of it. And you see the way the guys are reacting, the way the guys are handling each other. It's great to see us be competitive, but at the same time, you don't want to denigrate your teammate. You want to be able to put your arm around them and say, hey, yeah, I might have had success against you on this, but this is how, hey, you did this really good, work on that. Hey, this is how you put yourself in position to be successful. It's working together, it's coming together, and again, that's all part of it as far as I'm concerned. And we'll continue to preach that with our guys.
How is that comfort level helping you on any plays in particular?
I mean, nothing too particular. I mean, it's just one of those things where you done seen so many different reps, and then you got a guy like Cole who's in that same position before, like telling you what to expect and what not to expect. So it's just picking up on different tendencies that's helping you play a lot faster than you did before.
And then the defense overall, and I think one of the words Ron Rivera has used a lot is humility. Do you feel like this defense has that, and how is it helping?
Definitely, and as a defense, it's one of those things where we're trying to set our own standard, and we don't really worry about what the outside noises are saying about us or anything like that. We're just going to go out there and make plays, and going forward, that's how it's always going to be.
You talked a lot about shoring up technique and becoming more consistent as a rookie. Where do you feel like you're at in that process now?
I feel like I have a really good trajectory going up. I'm excited about it. Every day I feel like I'm getting better and just really keying in on technique. I mean, you can't, however long my career is, I'm going to always be working on technique. It's never going to be a day where I'm like, all right, I'm good. You know, it's every day I'm going to work it out. So, but just keep on doing that, being more confident in myself and doing all that. It's just, I really feel like that's where I'm going right now.
Let's go into some of these storylines. And Sam Cosmi, at times I forget he's just going into his second year. You know, he comes in a very big, athletically gifted player, needed to really hone in on his technique, but I feel like he picked that up pretty early on. How important is he going to be to the success of this offensive line?
I mean, he's going to be critical when you got a starter at right tackle. He's, the youngest guy in the offensive line, but a guy who's very, very athletically gifted. And yeah, the offensive line is only as strong as its weakest link. So you need kind of an aggregate group of guys to be playing at a very high level. I think he's done a great job. He's looked the part. You mentioned the technique. He came out of college being one of the more experienced offensive linemen drafted that year. Mm-hmm. So again, a guy that had the pedigree, had the athleticism, and now he's just kind of actualizing on that. I think fleshing out that group in a nice way.
Yeah, and then when, listening to him talk, one of the things he spoke on is just how things feel so different, like night and day from last year to this year. And having so many different guys, interchangeable guys that you have to play up against, play next to, but we all learning the same thing, learning the same concept. So he's kind of basically counting off of those guys and what they're learning together, and just knowing some guys are going to do things a little differently, but he still has to learn the guy that's going to be next to him. But I think it's going to be key. Last year he showed us that he can play out the gate, and this year's going to be a big year for him, just knowing that we have a familiar body out there that's going to go head and toe for us.
You mentioned lining up with different guys next to him. That's something that they've continued to do throughout camp, is have different bodies constantly in different positions going throughout it. But you have to get into a certain form of chemistry, certain form of being in sync with the offensive line. We talk so much about how Carson Wentz is doing with the receivers. Well, if that offensive line is not working in front of him, forget it. He's going to have no time at all. Where are we on this offensive line feeling like they're solidified?
I think we're getting close. I think it's not quite there. I think Leno and Norwell have had an outstanding training camp. Obviously, Leno, when he goes up against Montez Sweat, is earning his money that week, but I think that's good. And then Norwell's done a great job with Allen, so I think you feel very good about the left side. Roulier's coming back, and he's starting to get his feet back under him, and everyone talks about what a calming presence he's been for that group. And then I think the right guard spot's a little bit in flux because Trey Turner's been out.
Yeah,
right?
been out.
And I think when he's in, I think he'll be fine. He's a 9-year vet, feeling very good. Love the athleticism. But again, that's the only spot that's been consistently in flux since training camp started. So getting him back in there will be great. But Wes Schweitzer's done an outstanding job filling in for him. So I think you feel very good about where they're at. Just about kind of honing in on some of those little details.
But chemistry is always going to be key, though. You know, and the offensive line has to get the feel of who's going to be the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And both guys, when it comes to Heineke, and I'm going to throw in Heineke because those guys played with Heineke last year. Now you have a guy like Carson. Carson has different intangibles. He's going to do things differently. So they have to get the feel of how long he stays in the pocket, how long, how quick he get the ball out of his hand. So I think that's going to be something that they're going to hone in on throughout this preseason, this training camp. And it should be all good for him, but it's not going to be easy.
And to that point, Carson's a guy who holds the football a long time. So getting used to that skill set, I think, is going to be also very important.
Some of the guys have been asked, what is it different, blocking for Carson compared to Taylor Heineke? And they said, just to your point.
Oh, interesting.
They just might have to be able to protect just a little bit longer.
That's tough, man.
But no matter, that is what they're tasked with doing, and that is why they're here in this league. Let's go over to the defense. And, look, every player that goes up there and talks to the media talks about how they were kind of humbled. I feel like that word gets used a lot around here. And they just did not perform up to the expectations of where before they were that top 5 defense the year before when, they won the division, albeit with 7 wins here. So we're seeing the defense kind of really get off to a strong start, but they're not necessarily putting in game plans. The schemes are not out there. So where are we realistically with how we feel this defense is coming together?
I think they're much better. I think they're in a much better spot. I think, just looking at the back end, those guys are communicating at a much higher level, and that's kind of half the battle, just making sure you're on the same page. And then the other thing is, in the analytics community, defense is such a high variance kind of side of the football, right? It's tough to kind of consistently be a good defensive football team. So I think that's something to keep in mind, and they're going to face a string of quarterbacks this year that is nowhere near what it was last year. I expect them to be much better, just given the strength of schedule, but also what they've shown in camp so far.
It's great to see their energy right now throughout the practice. It's great to see the energy. It's great to see what these guys are doing. But I think one of the things you want to see that energy, basically transfer over to the football field come, Saturday night. Saturday midday or whatever it may be.
Yeah, midday.
So you want to see these guys play with the same energy level, when it's time to really go out there and put it all on tape. So I'm happy what I'm seeing right now thus far in practice, but we also know that until you play the game, we can't really speak on what's going on.
Yeah, well, the game will be played Saturday. How much of the stars will we see? Not sure, but we know at least we'll see them out there. 1 o'clock against the Carolina Panthers. Again, we are here at practice, bringing it to you live with a look in at what's going on the field right here behind us. Now, just the other day, we had out the Washington Spirit. It was great to have them out here. As head coach Ron Rivera said, it's important that we support the other teams in the area as well. They had the chance to kick it with some of the team guys, including Tress Way and kicker Joey Sly. It is our Pepsi player profile, the official soft drink of the Washington Commanders.
To the GoPro. To the GoPro.
Don't mess up.
Yeah, we're not getting closer. Do it, DK.
Nice!
Hold on, I'm an athlete, hold on.
Did you just make a noise standing back up?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous.
No way.
Jeez!
I feel like I'm stepping back. I'm about to take a corner. Yeah, let's do football. No, you guys have to show us how it's done. That was so fast. That was nice. You guys are nice with it. It's like you do it for a living. Hopefully I don't hit you.
Oh!
Woo! Good snap.
Who's going to follow it?
2 for 2!
All right. Can we go 3 in a row?
Boom!
All right. Oh, yeah.
And we're good at this. Good job.
Well, that's there. Oh!
Nice.
It's
Yeah!
there! It's there! Oh!
Redemption shots, absolutely. That's a thing.
Oh, that's there!
That's so good. Yeah!
1, 2, 3.
Good luck, guys.
Sign them up. That's what we should do. Great to have the Spirit out at the park. Now, while we are talking about kicking, let's take a look at Joey Sly's numbers last season after officially taking over the starting job. Well, he missed a couple of games with a hamstring injury, but was still consistent for the Commanders. It is a position you take for granted until you're missing kicks, so we are glad to have Joey back. Now, for everything you need to know about the team and what is happening at training camp and beyond, do not miss Command Center. You can join myself, former tight end and film room expert Logan Paulson, and our wideout 8 to the 9, Santana Moss, every day for your Commanders fix, highlights, analysis, and inside access you won't get anywhere else. You can see every episode on our YouTube channel and on Commanders.com. You can also check us out on NBC Sports Washington weekdays 5:30 and 10 p.m. No, don't go anywhere, because when we come back, head coach Ron Rivera is joining the show. He sits down with Logan and Santana to talk about how camp is going and what position groups to keep an eye on in the first preseason game. But before they talk with Coach, Logan and Santana are heading down to the field to bring you your Field Pass, a live report from the field. This is Command Center Camp Coverage Live. We'll only be away for 60 seconds, and we are showing you practice the entire time.
Told you long ago on the road, I got what they waiting for.
Introducing Nitro Pepsi. Smooth, creamy, delicious.
Another rock and roll weekend.
Burgers, better with Pepsi.
We are back on Command Center Camp Coverage Live, presented by the inaugural Commanders Fan Cruise, setting sail March 26, 2023. Reserve your spot at www.commandersfancruise.com. It is time now for your Field Pass, presented by FedEx, where now meets next. Logan and Santana are down on the practice field. Okay, guys, what are you keeping your eye on?
Thanks, Julie. We've got running backs, we've got offensive line, we've talked about all. Let's first off with the running backs. Anything about the running backs every day around here, Randy Jordan has them doing the craziest drills.
Yeah.
Trying to get those feet right. When you're playing running backs, that's one of the things you got to work on, is just kind of being ready for the things you can't be naturally prepared for.
Yeah.
What do you think of those drills that Coach Jordan's got them doing out there?
It's very interesting just seeing them sometime. And I've always been a guy that watched these guys throughout my career. But some of the things that they're going through is basically being able to use
static on their feet.
your footwork, and also, shed off of that defender, stabbing at the guy, playing, stiff arm, and all the stuff that he has these guys doing is stuff you see throughout the game and throughout practice.
The thing he isn't doing a ton is like this jump cut, right? Kind of working forward as fast as you can, working laterally in the direction, and then he always has some kind of random element going on with his with the running back. So I think that's also really interesting in terms of getting those guys prep. Right now we're switching gears. We're going to like a team run type setting. Obviously the tight ends are coming together. You don't know a lot about this, Tana, but how important is it to get these extra reps in these team periods?
Very, very important. I think one of the things that's so important about this drill is just getting these guys to basically have a walkthrough together, so they'll know what's going on when it comes time, when everything is flying at them. This period is just like that routes on air period for the receivers. You have to basically say, hey, this is what we're going to script in for today, and so we need to be on this lane, this line, this hole. We need to have everybody in sync, hitting their spots. And I think that's something that I never paid attention to, but I know you was the guy that was over here a lot, so I can just imagine what it was like going through it.
Yeah, and I'm just watching here, John Bates, they're working through, that's another thing about these run schemes, right? So everyone thinks, you're just blocking kind of whoever's in front of you, right? Different run schemes dictate different responses. So in this case right here, like the offensive line has the 4 down, and then you have to designate who else you're blocking. So Bates right there was kind of calling out saying, hey, are you a linebacker, are you a safety? Because oftentimes in run schemes, the blocking service doesn't block safeties. Receiver blocks safeties, right? So you need to get that dog in there, go put his hat on somebody, and come in with that intention. Did you enjoy doing that, Tana?
I didn't enjoy it, but I knew it was my job. It was something that I took advantage of, being a complete receiver. Folks think wide out's supposed to catch passes or touchdowns. True, but I got a different kind of feel when I make a key block for a long run or for a touchdown. So I knew that was my job, and when you see the guys on different sides of the field, like you just mentioned, that safety in the box, he might be down there for the tight end. If he's deep enough, then he's my guy. So that's something that we all have to play close attention to, key off each other.
And I think you said something about an old receiver who said, like, that's what you get paid to do, right, in those critical situations.
Yeah, my first couple of years in New York, man, Wayne Corbett, kind of shared with me, how gratifying it was for him to just be able to make a key touchdown or spring or, a long run. And it was crazy because where I had came from, University of Miami, my receiver coach put that in us year one. He told us if you didn't block, you wasn't going to play. And, we was one of the digging guys out. So it's always special to get a wide out who's not interested in making the highlights, want to go out there and be a part of something else out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this is just a great time to kind of catch up on some football, see the walkthrough stuff. But we'll have to kind of check some more out this preseason. Julie, back to you.
All right, thanks, guys. Obviously, a lot of static going on here live at training camp with some interference going on. Apologies for that, but guess what? They are down there, and now we're going to bring you an interview with head coach Ron Rivera in his third training camp as the head coach here in Washington. Been a bit of a wild ride. He went through a battle with cancer and came out on the other side there. Led the team to an NFC East Division title in 2021, and as he enters year 3 with a new starting quarterback, we are hoping for big things in the first season as the Commanders. Coach took some time out of his busy schedule to stop by our set and catch up with Logan and Santana in a Commanders conversation.
All right, we're here with Coach Rivera, which is always a pleasure to have Coach here. Coach, we're deep into training camp now. What's the vibe from the team?
I think it's positive. I think there were some really good things that came out of Saturday's workout at FedEx, and some things that we feel really good about, and some things we want to go back and hone up and correct and get the guys going. But it's been a good vibe, very positive. I'm really looking forward to this coming Saturday against Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so you mentioned that, people are getting fatigued now, right?
Yep.
How do you keep guys motivated going into this preseason game?
Well, I think now it's about making sure that we can create opportunities for them to get a little bit of a break, but also in front of them just continue to talk about opportunities. And if players do things where they know there's opportunity coming, I think they'll prepare and get themselves ready for it. So it's a little about getting their minds right and getting prepared for that.
Speaking of opportunity, that first preseason game, you want to see your first guys, the starters, guys who you're going to depend on during the season, play a few reps. But how important it is for those guys that are fighting for a spot and guys that you really want to see how they are in live action?
Well, I think the biggest thing on that, Santana, is they got to understand that, hey, this is my chance. Whenever they're in there, it's not about how many snaps they get, but it's about how well they perform. And they got to be prepared. I mean, today, for instance, we come off of a day off, and we had a couple mental errors. Guys didn't know where to line up. Guys that are supposed to motion didn't motion. Guys that were supposed to, play a certain type of coverage didn't play the coverages right. So, that's one of the things you tell the guys, hey, dudes, you got to prepare. You got to be ready to go. As we get ready for the first preseason game, this is all about opportunity.
What do you take, and I didn't mean to cut you off, what do you take from a game? Say, for instance, you go out there first preseason game, and I'm big on this because I remember, those years of playing, and say we don't have a nice outcome, or we don't go out there and play as well as I expected as a coach, coach's standpoint. What do you take from that, though? Because it's still a preseason, and people get caught up in it and be like, oh, well, they didn't show much or they didn't do much. Right. How does a coach handles that and basically going back to his team and let them know, hey, we still in that audition stage, we still in that stage of steady, working to get to where we're trying to go? How do you take on that, and how do you basically let your team know that don't get caught up on what you displayed?
I think the biggest thing is, to me, you look at it two ways. You look at the mental and physical approach to the game. Did we make a lot of mental mistakes? Did we miss a lot of opportunities? That's disappointing. Okay, because again, we should be preparing. We should know what to do mentally. We should be able to handle circumstances. Like today was a big situational practice. We worked on 4 minute, where you have to get a first down on offense. Defense, you got to stop them. We worked them backed up. Hey, you got to get out of the shadow of the end zone. You got to keep them back. So again, we'll look at that and say, how did we handle situational football? And then the second, and to me the biggest one, is the physical aspect. Did we physically get beat? Okay, that's something that as we gauge that, did we get physically beat? That tells us, hey, we weren't ready and we weren't good enough. And so that's something that'll be on me, that'll be on the coaches, that we've got to determine. So as we evaluate it, to your question, Santana, we got to look at both those aspects and determine whether we did the things the right way and did we come out and play physically.
And obviously that's like from a team standpoint, but obviously one of your most important players is Carson Wentz. What is like a successful outing for him? I'm sure that's really hard to determine.
Well, again, it'll be about, did we move the ball first and foremost?
Right.
Did he have command of the offense? Did he have command of what the calls were? How did he handle situational football? And that's what we're hoping. We get a lot of situational football, whether it's backed up or we get into the red zone, whether it's short, third down and short, third down and medium, third down and long. How did we handle that? And who knows, if we play him long enough that he gets a 2-minute operation, that would be outstanding as well.
Yeah, and the rhythm of it, right? It's kind of like this thing. He's just got to kind of follow into a rhythm. If it executes well, then you just kind of know when you see it, right?
And that'll also be for the coaches, because again, one thing that you want to see us do is be able to handle the rhythm of the game.
Right.
Are we calling the plays and getting a good rhythm for all three phases?
You know, being a guy that came in here to change a lot of the things in this organization 3 years ago, and I remember you talking big about, you know, that third year is going to be very important. You know, I know it's important for you, but, you know, how hard is it to say, okay, now I have the nucleus here with me, but we changed the quarterback. We don't have the quarterback, you know, to really say that he's been here long enough. How hard is that process to say, okay, we have to get him caught up to what everybody else is on?
And that's a great question, because, again, you guys both know this, is that it really is about, did we come together as a team, and did he present himself and step up as the leader? I mean, the quarterback position is so important. It's just like being the middle linebacker, or being, you know, the free safety, or being the center. I mean, you've got to be able to have command of, first and foremost, of your group, and then secondly of what we're doing and how we do it. And he's learning that, and he's been really good about it. He really has. He's still growing. There's still some things, some concepts that we do that, again, I think we're a little bit different from what he had done in the past. So as he gets more and more comfortable, you'll start seeing those plays. Great examples, what happened in the red zone. Some of those concepts we used were right of the concepts that he had used.
Yeah.
He'd been at other stops. So again, when you're doing those things that are familiar, you see the growth, that he's making those good decisions. It's the other things, the other aspects of the game that he's still developing on.
And, you know, obviously Carson Wentz is a huge piece of this moving forward, but you got 53 other roster spots to fill, and I feel like the top 22 is pretty clear, maybe even the top 40. Like, are there any positions or guys you're keeping an eye on in the preseason that you feel really good about?
Most certainly. I mean, there are some depth positions that we've got to look at. Linebackers are a really good one for us. You know, safety is another real good one. The tight end position has shown what the potential can
Incredibly
be.
deep.
And so who's going to be that make it, and who doesn't? I mean, those are tough questions to answer as far as we're concerned. Who the fourth tackle is going to be on defense? You know, who's that fourth DT for us? The top three are outstanding. Now, what are we going to do with that fourth spot? So there's still some intrigue as to what our roster is going to be like.
Now, I know we're a little ways away from the first preseason game, but, you know, it's always a guy or two that all the coaches are high on. Yep. You know, can you give us a little sneak peek of somebody that might have, you know, flashed a couple of times, Steve?
Well, I'll tell you right now, the position really, as I mentioned, has been tight end.
Yeah.
You got to really watch that group of guys. They've had a good camp as a whole. We've had some nicks, we've had some hamstrings, and so a lot of guys are getting a lot of opportunities. So keep an eye on those young guys. I do like the young safeties.
Yeah.
You know, keep an eye on Percy, keep an eye on Defoe, keep an eye on Reeves. I mean, those three guys have had an outstanding camp.
I've been loving Reeves. Man.
Yeah,
Reeves bring it.
And so that's some really cool stuff. The receiver group, it's good to see the veteran guys that have been out there. We're working a plan on Curtis. So Curtis was up on Saturday. He was up again today. We'll slow him down a little bit, but seeing him out there working with those guys, working with Jahani, I mean that's pretty cool to me, to see the talent and the potential.
Yeah.
And you guys know potential's a scary word.
Sometimes a bad word, right?
We know.
But Coach, you mentioned the receivers there. Is anybody, like, you know, I see Kelvin Harmon, I see Dax, though, kind of those 5-6 guys in the roster, you know, that are making plays. Like, what does that mean for you?
They have, and Markham.
Yes,
he's another young man.
we were talking about him. Had a great day on Saturday.
Yeah, and he's a guy that came out last year. We bring him in at the beginning of the season, and he's on practice squad. And he's a guy that just works, and now we're starting to see the result of it.
Yeah.
He's got an opportunity. He's got a lot of people's eye. And you mentioned Kelvin, who's a guy that, you know, we got to pay attention to. Obviously, you know, that group is, you know, like you said, 5, 6, 7. Those are legit guys.
Yeah.
So we'll see. There's some big decisions ahead.
I mean, so much exciting stuff for the preseason. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it, guys.
Here's a look at the record Coach has put up in his first 2 seasons here in Washington, D.C. Of course, they won the division with 7 wins that first year, given the state of the NFC East. And then they went and had 7 wins last season as well, dealing with a lot of different COVID issues and injuries. But here we are now with this roster being more along the lines of what head coach Ron Rivera would want. He's basically flipped it. He wanted to make sure that it was younger, as we heard him say. Pay attention to a lot of the younger players. And a lot of the younger guys on here have a lot of experience playing as well, because of the strategy to make sure that you can go on the young legs of the guys. That's what he says. That's how you're going to consistently get to the postseason, is what you want, is to build on them. Where would you say he is? If you look at where they were from year 1, Santana, to where they are now in year 3.
Well, when you watch them play last year, you can see that he's been doing just what he said he was going to do, develop players. That's key. You know, I've been here, I played here for 10 years. And you rarely saw across the board guys that we brought in and we developed to be a part of what we was trying to do. You always got guys that was good at other schemes or in other teams and tried to implement in what you're trying to do, and that's 9 times out of 10 doesn't work. So I'm loving what I'm seeing when it comes to that part of the game and that part when it comes to getting the right guy that fits your scheme. This is going to be the year. This is the year that he talked about from day one. You know, you need 3 years. You need 3 years to really implement what you're trying to do. And you got to think, he was brought in here to, yes, lead this team, but a whole lot of other stuff he had to do that he shouldn't have been, having to worry about. And he's been doing a great job at it. But I'm really interested in seeing what he can do with the core of guys that have been here, but also with the new guy that's going to be leading this team with Carson Wentz.
I mean, that's such a good answer. Like, I was going to say some nonsense, but that was a really good answer. Like, that was like, the developmental element I think is huge. I also think the culture shift has been awesome, and then him finding a quarterback hopefully for this year, I think is another element.
That's something that he's really wanted, and he went out and he said that he's really wanted a vet to be able to run it because the offense is relatively young. They want somebody that comes in there and kind of can nurture and help grow a lot of the young guys on this team, but now those young guys have 2 years basically of experience in this offense as well. So then what determines a successful season? Because he won't say playoffs or bust necessarily. He says our job is to go out there and get wins, and we know he doesn't like the word potential because that seems a little bit unfair because they do have a lot of potential, but we haven't done anything with it yet.
Yeah. Potential is kind of a bad word in the NFL, because that means you aren't playing where you should be playing, right? So I think that's something that why he's so reluctant to use that word. But also I think that, like, for him, he's a very process-driven human being in our conversations with him. And I think, like, I was a process-driven player and, like, just improvement. Yeah. And that doesn't always come in the form of wins and losses. Yeah. And I think that's the frustrating thing for coaches is, like, everyone says, oh, we need this many wins, we need to make the playoffs. But for him, for a guy who's passionate about football, it's not about that. It's like, is the roster getting better? Yes. Is the team improving? Is the chemistry improving? And all of those things have been true over his tenure, but they don't always manifest themselves as win, and that's why it's tough being a head coach in the NFL.
I mean, I think that's a great answer. I mean, honestly, we're going to sit here and be like what folks might say out in the outside world and say, well, you need to, have a winning season. You need to go to the playoffs. You need to go deep into the playoffs. All that is key. But if you're not improving, you can't have none of that. Yeah. So you have to have a team that you put out there and that you can actually see that they took steps from year 1, year 2, and now year 3. Here's the proven product. And, you look at the schedule, you say, okay, take advantage of what we have. Last year was a tough schedule. We knew coming out of the gate this thing could be ugly. We all said, oh, man, we're praying for them to be 500, at 4 games. And this year you have a pretty fair schedule. But go out there and play and show dominance. Show that you can play, with what's in front of you. And I think, to me, that's a step of, improving and showing that you're a team that's showing that progress.
So let's talk about the schedule. First up is Jacksonville at home, and then you get the Detroit Lions. And everybody would say on paper those are 2 easy wins. Yeah. But as we know, and as you guys have seen in the NFL, there's no such thing. And the second that you start saying, we've got this, and you get that aspect about you, you're not preparing in a way that shows off the dominance that you should have. So what do they still need to have to do to come out with that and get that win against Jacksonville?
I think the defense is in a really good spot. I think they're showing a nice maturity at this point in training camp, and obviously there still needs to be improvement, but I think you feel pretty good about that group. We talked about the O-line and where they're at. They've improved every single day, and I think they're getting to a point where you feel good about them going into week 1. I think the offensive skill positions, quarterback, receivers, tight ends, and just making sure that chemistry is on point. Because, early on in this offseason, we said that was the group that was going to carry this team, not necessarily the defense. And right now they're coming along slower than I think a lot of people expected. So if Ron can get that to where it needs to be, get Carson Wentz's confidence to where it needs to be, I think that's kind of what he needs to continue to be thinking about going into week 1.
Yeah, you have to be able to move the ball when you have the ball on offense, and you have to be able to stop the guys from getting in the end zone. That's simple. You know what I mean? Honestly. Jacksonville beat that Indianapolis team last year that Carson was on that could have easily walked into the playoffs. Right. You know what I mean? So, no, it's never an easy game. So you have to go out there and do what you're supposed to do in all phases of the game, and that's how you get wins.
And they do want the fan base behind them as well. I think we saw how important that was at Saturday's open practice. We hear that from the fan base and head coach Rivera. They really want to win everybody back, take back FedEx Field. And that starts against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We want to make sure you are there. Tickets are still available. It will be on Sunday, September 11th at 1 p.m. Tickets, they start at just $46. That is while supplies last. So get your official Ticketmaster verified tickets at commanders.com/tickets. Command the stands. Well, we are not done yet, folks. When we come back, we're going to talk about one of Carson Wentz's favorite targets, the tight end. We have some depth at the position, but who is standing out to Logan and Santana so far? We will find out. This is Command Center Camp Coverage Live, and we will be right back after this 1-minute break, but the field cam is staying up.
This one's for every NFL fan whose fan cave is more like a fan corner of a guest room closet. You've compromised enough. Pepsi Zero Sugar.
You fired up the grill for one hot dog? Seriously?
Hot dogs, better with Pepsi.
Welcome back to Command Center Camp Coverage Live, presented by the inaugural Commanders Fan Cruise, set sail March 26, 2023. Reserve your spot at www.commandersfancruise.com. Well, fans have been active on social media. Here's a look at some of the posts with the hashtag HTTC, Hail to the Commanders. Fans coming out here and getting pictures with their favorite players. We hope you have the opportunity to come and see them up close and personal. Showing Antonio Gibson as well with his footwork. Excited to see what he does in year 3 at the running back position. Well, it may be hot out here, but that's not going to stop us from going camping with team reporter Zach Selby.
This is Camping Out with Zach Selby, and welcome to week 3 of training camp, where we are more familiar with the 5th and 6th receivers on the depth chart than we are members of our own family, and we are getting ready for the preseason opener against the Carolina Panthers. Today we talked to 2 reporters on the beat, Michael Phillips from the Richmond Times-Dispatch and freelance broadcaster Scott Jackson. Let's go take a look at what they had to say. And now we have Scott Jackson. We're entering into week 3. What's the one thing you really want to learn as we kind of get into the second half of training camp?
Well, you kind of get a lean on the rotations, like where the starters are going to be, because there's not, I think the starters are kind of set if everybody's healthy, and we have to see that part of it first, but then kind of like who the rotational players are going to be, and obviously those back 8 to 10 guys that are trying to make the roster, right, to get to that final 53 is interesting, and, there's always some surprise. There's always somebody we didn't account for, some rookie that's going to flash and maybe has a much bigger role this season, or a free agent, or, an undrafted free agent. We've had a lot of undrafted rookies over these last few years make the teams, which is exciting to me when you see that kind of stuff happen, because once you're in here, it really doesn't matter how you got here. It's about performance.
Next we have Michael Phillips again from the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Armani Rogers, with all the depth being super thin at tight end, he has really stood out recently. He made a couple really nice catches today. I think we're all waiting on Logan Thomas to see what he does, whether he comes off the pup list or not, but he's the guy that's really stood out to you, right?
I did not have Armani Rogers getting snaps with the ones on my training camp.
Here we are, knock that off your bingo card now. Yeah.
It's certainly good to see guys take advantage of their opportunities, and Samus Reyes is another guy. Can he step up and excel here with this window of time where it looks like guys are going to be able to get some reps?
Well, you speak of guys who are on the side field, Hodges and Thomas.
Good unit over there.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. You're probably winning in terms of like the side field crew there. But Hodges has, whenever he's out there, he's kind of stood out too, right?
Well, he does stand out. He's 6'8". Yeah,
absolutely. well, all the other tight ends are really big too.
I know. Cole Turner's 6'6". It's a great room. It's a really, it's a tall room. Gives Carson Wentz those big targets he wants. This is a great example, though, of the front office helping out the team. Carson Wentz likes throwing to tight ends. He likes tall targets. Go get the guy some tall tight ends. And we got 2 really good ones here, Curtis Hodges and Cole Turner. I love it. I love the play. Now, look, Logan Thomas is the starter. He's taking all the catches when he gets back.
Shocker.
He's the guy. But in the interim, you love what they've done there with bringing in a couple tall young targets for Carson Wentz.
Today was a day where they ramped Curtis down. Time for today's Fresh Takes, presented by Safeway, the official supermarket of the Washington Commanders. And you can listen to Zach's full interviews with the beat reporters on our podcast, Going Camping with Selby. Find it wherever you get your other Command Center podcasts. Logan Santana, let's talk a little bit about this. One of the positions that head coach Ron Rivera said pay close attention to, Logan, I'll go to you because you've been saying this all camp long, is tight end. You've got Cole Turner dealing with a little bit of tweaked hammies out there. It's hot. These guys are trying to adjust. They've got the pads on to that. But they say it's nothing to be too concerned about. But some are wondering, do we need to bring in another tight end? Where is this unit?
I mean, this is one of the deepest tight end units I've ever been around, just from a young group of guys that are playing really well. And people forget about Bates. Bates had an outstanding day yesterday, coming back to practice after the calf injury. But yeah, Cole Turner, Curtis Hodges, Armani Rogers, those guys have done an outstanding job. Hodges was kind of down yesterday, so Armani came in, and he's like the fifth guy in the depth chart, but he made some outstanding plays in the passing game yesterday. So just a really deep group. I think you want to bring somebody in just for a body at this point, which they've done. Can't remember the kid's name at the moment. We just were talking about him earlier. But, new guy came in yesterday, and I think it's just to kind of take some reps off of those guys. Eli Wolf, thank you. And they've done a great job. Those guys have done such a good job. You just need somebody to kind of distribute the reps to a little bit. But I think you feel very, very good about this position.
And Santana, if we're talking about different position groups to really kind of focus in on to see where we are and how confident we can be in them, what are you looking at in that preseason game?
I'm always looking at the receivers first and foremost, because you always have your core guys that you think that you're gonna, that pretty much have their spot. But you want to see that guy or two that's going to make it, because he can play receiver, but we also can use him on special teams. I think we have three guys that can be candidates for that. You have Cam Sims. You have the guy we talked about so much yesterday, Michelle. Oh my God, I keep talking about this guy.
Michelle,
and then you have Dax Mim. He's one of those guys that he showed so much potential last year as a receiver. Where can he fit in and do more at? I'm not sure what he'd be. I see him on the depth chart as a punt returner / kick returner. So you want to pay close attention to those guys. But I'm also going to be paying close attention to just the D-line. We talked about depth on the D-line. We want to see who those DNs is going to step up and say, hey, this is time for me to shine. This is time for me to get my shot. And also who's going to be inside. We have Mathis. We drafted Mathis. I want to see what role can he take on in this defense, knowing that we're missing a guy like Ioannidis. We need another guy that we can put down there with those guys, because those guys did a great job last year of coming in and out of games being fresh all the time. People fail to realize how important that is. As a receiver, it was tremendous for my game and for my longevity throughout my career to be able to come in and out. Folks, I played with a guy, Reggie Wayne, never liked to come out of the game. But I'm like, bro, I have a different twitch about myself. I need to rest it sometimes. So I'm going to pay close attention to those two key positions.
You talk about the rotation at times. Some were going, why is so-and-so X name not out there? Because it's just the way the rotation goes. Sure. They need to keep those legs fresh. When you talk about the receivers, look, they let Adam Humphries go. They let DeAndre Carter go. So somebody needs to step up, because at times throughout the season last year, they relied on them heavily in the offense to make some plays. So it will be exciting to kind of see who really emerges in that unit. It is a very special day today, a day where we say happy birthday to Doug Williams. Look, he is a legend walking around here. It's always so great. So happy birthday to Mr. Doug Williams.
Birthday, Doug.
Means so much to this franchise. Hopefully it is an absolute wonderful day for him. Okay, preseason game number 1 is coming up this weekend. We hope you're there for it. Success for that game, what is it going to mean?
I think if that first group comes out and has a really smooth drive kind of to start the game, I think that's a success. Then you got to find out how the depth is in terms of the rest of the game. But that first drive, I'm going to be watching very, very closely.
Yeah, get points any way possible. Field goal, touchdown, pick six, fumble recovery to a touchdown. Get some points.
It's all about getting in rhythm, getting in sync, making some big plays to get everybody excited for the upcoming season, year 3 under head coach Ron Rivera. Hey, that's going to do it from this live Command Center camp coverage. We appreciate you joining us. We'll be back here again tomorrow, of course, bringing you coverage every single day. But today we were allowed to go live. Thank you to the NFL letting us go live one day a week. Of course, you can always follow us on Command Center as well. Have a great day, everybody, and hail to the Commanders.